Hello folks, and welcome to the tennis podcast where we are live from Wimbledon now, just 40 hours from the start of play on Monday. Here we are in our glorious position overlooking, well, all the courts frankly, but court 18 right behind us here has just been covered, the sprinklers have been out, and it's been a treat to be overlooking that court today because quite a lot of interesting names have been practicing on it. We saw Alex de Minaur hitting, watched on by not one Hewitt but two, both Leighton and Cruz Hewitt. Unsure what Cruz Hewitt's role in the whole situation was, but he was very much there. Raducanu was out practicing there. Jack Draper, Tatiana Maria out there late this evening. It's a good spot to be in here, isn't it?
It's very good. And now at this time of night we have it all to ourselves, which is lovely as well. There are times when sometimes we come over to our desk and there's people at our desk and we have to, well, politely join them / slowly kick them out.
Yes, earlier I said I'm so terribly sorry, but we do need to be here, and it was a lie. I wasn't sorry. I love kicking people out of our area. So do you, David. Don't laugh at me like that. You love it too.
It's great. But you're right. At this time of evening, and particularly a couple of days before this tournament gets underway, we're just looking at each other 20 minutes ago and around, because everybody's left now pretty much for the evening. Just can't believe we've got the run of this place, and it's just so beautiful and quiet, and knowing what's to come in, as you said, 40 hours. I didn't realise it was that soon, but yeah, it's an absolute treat.
That is some maths that I just did about 30 seconds before we came on air, so I really hope that's accurate. Hello to everybody that is joining us live on YouTube. Do hit that like and subscribe button. I shouldn't point because that does make it seem threatening, and I'm really trying to make that not seem threatening, but please do like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot, and lots of you did yesterday, and we're very grateful for that. I mean, don't like if you're not enjoying, but
I say like, even if you're not.
You probably wouldn't be here if it's not your thing. So hopefully it is. If you like what we're wearing, the links to these things are in our show notes. David, if you like the shirt David's wearing, he's got it in 4 colours. So you're going to be seeing a lot of it.
I love it.
And I've got it in the colour you were wearing yesterday. So we hope you like this shirt, folks.
This is the Oxford green stripe. And look, I know I'm supposed to say this stuff anyway, but it's an honest truth that it is the most comfortable shirt I've ever worn in my whole life. So yeah, I don't intend to wear anything else.
Yes, we're very thrilled with our free clothes, and yeah, the links to them are in the show notes. Right, let's talk Media Day. We got a few other bits and bobs to talk about today as well. I've been subjecting myself to an Andy Murray practice session. I'll offload that trauma onto you all later. We can have a shared therapy session. But let's start off with the main meat of the day, which is Media Day, where all the players come through the main press conference room and come through this area up here as well, which is where all the various different broadcasters are stationed. They do sometimes in-depth sit-down interviews. Sometimes they're doing fun little skits for social media. Over my right shoulder here, Daniil Medvedev was doing an interview with a child, and that looked like it was going to be adorable content. So yeah, it's all been happening today, folks, and we've seen pretty much all of the main movers and shakers. The only 2 big names held over till tomorrow are Andy Murray and Marketa Vondrousova. They'll be tomorrow, and of course we have a show tomorrow, so we'll let you know what they have got to say then. But I think we should start with today with Aryna Sabalenka, former semi-finalist, of course. On the face of it, a lot of people's pick for the title. I think, Matt, before she sustained that injury in Berlin, she was looking like she was going to be your pick for the title. Well, she came into press today, it has to be said, with an incredibly sunny, relaxed demeanour, and she had that throughout, and she's been showing that same demeanour across social media this week, hasn't she? Been putting out dancing videos and general merriment across the board. But she said very directly to a very direct question, I am not 100% fit now. She said, I'm doing everything I can with my team to try and be ready for my first match. But I asked her outright towards the end of the press conference, what is the injury? And she confirmed it was a shoulder injury. She pointed to this area at the back of her shoulder there. I'm sure any medical people watching or listening will know what that's called, but you'll have to settle for a diagram for now. She said it doesn't affect her ground strokes at all, but it affects her serve big time. And she said there was a big chance pretty much that she won't even be able to take to the court on Monday. And I was pretty shocked by this. We all were intending to ask her about the injury. It's the first time she'd ever retired from a match when she did that in Berlin, but I was not expecting her to kind of drop the bombshell that she might not even be able to compete at this tournament.
Yeah, and I think there was kind of two ways you could read that retirement in Berlin. The fact that it was the first time she'd ever retired, and kind of the hopeful take was it was very much with Wimbledon in mind. You know, it was just, okay, I've got a little bit of a niggle, but Wimbledon's on the horizon. I'm going to do everything I can to be 100% for that. Or there was a potentially more negative take, and what now seems to be the case, that it's a real problem. And there's a reason she'd never retired before from a match, because she's not had a problem like this before. And yeah, she spoke about how it kind of feels like a lot of the time like she's not injured, because she can do everything. She was talking about how she can lift weight still and obviously hit her ground strokes, but just on the serve she's in a lot of pain. And I thought she sounded a little bit, obviously short term Wimbledon is a problem. It sounded to me like they've a little unclear like how it's going to sort of get better anyway. Like she sounded a little bit lost in terms of what the what the sort of outcome of this injury might be looking ahead, and she spoke about not wanting to jeopardize the rest of her season. And if you think about it, she's not playing the Olympics. If she were to pull out of Wimbledon, she does now have a chunk of time before the US hardcourt swing to try and get to the bottom of this injury and try and get over it and try and find a remedy for it, because right now she's a little bit lost. And yeah, it sounds pretty concerning for her participation at this year's Wimbledon, which is a kind of a game changer for the women's draw, I would say. Yeah,
Sabalenka was the first player through the main press conference room today, so it's been pretty thick and fast since then. We've not really had a chance to debrief on it all together, even though we were all in that press conference together. So David, I don't know what you think about this, but there was such a juxtaposition for me between that sunny, relaxed demeanour that she had. I mean, she was on the form of her life. Like, quite often Aryna Sabalenka press conferences can be not that worthwhile attending, quite frankly. Like, she's pretty much always pleasant, but she doesn't always have that much to say. But this was, we were all very grateful that we'd been, and we'd made sure that we were there. And I just wondered, I was confused for a while, maybe still am confused by that, seemingly being in such a good mood yet talking about potentially pulling out of the tournament. And I just wondered whether it's because she's sort of not in game mode. She didn't have her game face on because she thinks I'm probably actually not going to be competing in this tournament.
I definitely think that's one of the possibilities, that actually the likelihood is she won't play in her mind, and therefore, she's giving it every opportunity, but there might be a degree of acceptance. There felt like there was. It could be one of the two extremes: either acceptance of the fact that that's the situation, and then she's got to sort it out once she doesn't play this event, or once this tournament's over for her, or it could be kind of shock and denial to some degree of just not really believing that this is happening to her. Because it struck me when she was explaining to you the nature of the injury that she was also saying, I feel so good. I feel so fit. I feel like if you told me to go and lift weights now, I can do it. But I just can't serve without pain. And you could see how annoyed she was about that situation. And I do think she could have gone through that press conference. I mean, I don't want to pat ourselves too much on the back here, but the fact is we asked the questions, are you 100% fit? No. I think if she hadn't been asked it like that and directly, she just probably wouldn't have gone there and talked about it, because, otherwise she's happy to be here. I think she's somebody who loves competing, loves being on the tour, and it never seems like too much of a grind for her. But then the grim reality is that she's got something that might stop her playing altogether.
And I also think, Sabalenka's history, she's had a lot of problems with her serve, and okay, like she did have to sort of reconstruct that serve a bit and do some biomechanic work, and that must be a worry, I imagine, sort of long term, if there's like she's found a serve that has helped turn her into a Grand Slam champion from someone who had the yips on it. Like, she's not going to want to sort of mess about with that, I would have thought. So it's kind of just a risky injury, I suppose, for her career generally. If there's something that's happened that is stopping her serving, I sort of had that in my mind as well, in terms of like, don't push it and make this worse.
Sara Errani reached a Grand Slam final without a serve. So
how quickly can she just develop a great underarm serve? Right,
Corentin Moutet did it, didn't he? Developed it as a result of injury.
Yeah, but
don't you diss Moutet? He's awesome.
Right, yeah.
It is one of his best shots, his underarm serve.
It's really good.
Yeah, he's turned it into an art form, hasn't he? Would love to see Sabalenka do that, but 2 days is probably not enough time.
And I mean, she did also speak about just the sort of suffering she's gone through in the last month. You know, I think referring to her illness at the French Open, and she said that took her, was it 5 or 6 days to sort of get over that after Paris. And, you know, it struck me that maybe there'd been one or two other things that she didn't even mention in this last month. Yeah, really quite a shocking way to start media day, actually. As you said, she was the first big name into the press conference room, and suddenly I was looking at the tournament a bit differently.
It strengthens my feeling that I'm going to end up picking Coco Gauff for this title, as did everything she said in her press conference, quite frankly, and all the energy that she was emitting, which was nothing but relaxation and positivity, I thought. And it was you asked the question, David, about the comparison of now to 12 months ago, where she lost in the first round to Sofia Kenin, and she was bereft after that loss. And she said in response to you, I wish a year ago me could see me now. And she is a real kind of inspiration story, isn't she, in that respect? Because her greatest high followed immediately from her biggest trough. It sounds like that loss here last year was a really deep low from her, and the summer ended with her becoming a Grand Slam champion. Yeah,
she said there were a couple of really dark weeks for her after that. And look, it fed into the soul searching that led to her hiring Brad Gilbert, going on that incredible run that culminated in winning the US Open. And she did seem different as well here today. One thing that I noted, and I think it might have been something she did on social media, was this decision to walk in a bucket hat. And what struck me about that was that's exactly what Carlos Alcaraz did a year ago. He walked in a bucket hat.
It is just what the kids are doing.
Is it? Okay, well, I haven't seen any other kids doing it. I've just seen those two kids. I don't know many kids. But
are your kids not wearing bucket hats?
No.
No, okay.
No.
They want to show off their hair.
Yeah, well, certainly my son does, yeah. But that wasn't the only parallel I drew between Gauff today and Alcaraz. I felt they were both just coming in looking older, more mature, more in control, more like people that not only expecting to be in the latter stages of this tournament, but almost sure of it. And there was a real certainty, not an arrogance, just self-confidence.
Is this your new Novak Djokovic never wins in a cap theory? Everyone that wears a bucket hat does win.
Maybe. I mean,
Federer doesn't win with a beard, and Djokovic doesn't win in a cap.
Yeah, I mean, the evidence is there so far, isn't it? 1-0 for Alcaraz.
And nobody wins Grand Slams in a backwards baseball cap, is the other theory.
Well, no, hold on. Leighton Hewitt, we saw down here, did exactly that in 2001 at the US Open. So, no, I'm not having that.
Okay.
Only certain people can do it, though. You know, people that really are old enough to know better and really shouldn't be doing it. Looking at you, Matteo Berrettini.
God, the guy can't catch a
no,
break.
but come on, you can't be wearing that when you're nearly 30.
What about Grigor?
Grigor's got to dispense with that thing as well. I mean, come on, Grigor. No, but come on, it's true, isn't it?
I saw Jan-Lennard Struff up here earlier. He's a backwards baseball cap guy as well, isn't he?
And he's dyed his hair, hasn't he?
I wouldn't
not
know,
surprised
Max. He's
he's wearing
covering it
then.
with a hat.
Good.
Yes, cameraman Matthew confirming.
What colour?
Blonde.
What colour was it before?
Brown?
Right. Show it off, Jan
Well,
Leonard.
I saw a photo of him, and it was peeking through his backwards cap. Yes.
Right.
Mm.
Anything else to report from Coco Gauff?
No, not really. I had the same, the same impression really. Just what a great mood she seemed in, and she was just radiating confidence really. But it is interesting, isn't it, how Wimbledon was her breakthrough moment. It was her breakthrough slam, and yet it has been her weakest slam. She's reached the semis at least of all the others, and I don't think's been beyond the fourth round here. Has been there a couple of times, but so there's plenty of room for growth still on this surface. But yeah, I come away from media day I've in that bottom half, there's a swingometer of where
That's very
it's
apt.
election week.
That's very apt for this week.
If I was over towards Sabalenka before, I've swung back towards Coco Gauff, I would say, based on those two press conferences.
Okay, well, the other side of the draw says hi.
No, in terms of who comes through that bottom
Okay.
half is what I'm saying.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, let's move to the top half now and talk about Iga Swiatek. Matt, we're relying on you for this. I was having a traumatic experience at a Rangi with Andy Murray at the time. David was probably loitering somewhere. Tell us what Iga
That's
Swiatek
terrible, doesn't it?
had to say.
Well, it got off to a slightly tough note because the first question was about how she's not playing in the Olympics. And she said, I am playing the Olympics, and that was the end of that.
That doesn't do much for media day, does it? The reputation.
No,
But,
that's tough.
I asked her about adapting to the grass. It was an obvious question, but I just kind of wanted an open-ended question just to see what she would talk about first in terms of what's most important to her. And she went into a bit of detail about moving on this surface, and that I think is, again, that was what Carlos Alcaraz was saying in his press conference. That's the big adaptation that's required. And for Swiatek, it's about stopping before you hit the ball and not sliding. She spent months sliding into her shots, and here she says she just cannot do that. She has to stop before she hits and then hit. So it's quite a big adjustment, and that's something that she has to get used to. I also asked about her serve, because we've spoken all year about how she has improved her serve, changed the technique, and I don't know, she gave a bit of a wry smile actually when I brought up the serve, as though she really thinks that is going to help her on the grass. She said it was kind of one of the reasons why they wanted to change the serve, was so that she could shorten some points and have it set up and then hit a big forehand. And I think she said it's been working really well in practice, but she needs to see it under the stress of match conditions. But I think it goes to what we spoke about yesterday. Okay, she hasn't played on grass since last year, but Iga Swiatek has improved and moved on and developed as a player in the last year. She's better now than she was last year, I think. And she's hoping to bring those improvements to the grass. And yeah, she also brought up the fact that she went to Taylor Swift at Anfield and said that she loved it so much she wanted to go again at Wembley.
Hard relate, Iga.
But she said that she was excited for so many days after the Anfield show that they thought actually, if she went to a Wembley show, she'd sort of ruin her Wimbledon preparations because she'd be too wired and loving it too much. So her team said you got to prepare for Wimbledon.
Eager. Look, I went to a Wembley show,
And here you
I
are,
am, perfectly
giving your
prepared
best work.
for Wimbledon, peaking at the right time.
I thought you were going to say she couldn't get any tickets.
No, I think if you get a personal note from Taylor Swift,
Oh, right.
you can get
I'm
tickets.
really sad for her that her team
Look,
intervened and
I think she agreed, but yeah, I was like, go again.
go again.
Yeah, you get new surprise
Imagine
songs.
being in a position of being able to click your fingers, and I'd be there every night. Ugh. Anyway,
But generally, I thought it's just interesting seeing Iga Swiatek come in so fresh, And she said she could have maybe squeezed the tournament in on grass, but didn't want to push it, and that's just a balance for her. She's fresh. This is kind of as fresh as she's ever going to be in the season, having just had a few weeks off. but she doesn't have the reps and the confidence on this surface like she does at clay. So I always think it's just interesting seeing Iga Swiatek in a different light, really, and we only really get that here. And Matt Futterman of The Athletic actually asked her directly, do you consider yourself an underdog here?
Great question.
And she was like...
repairing relations with the media after the Olympics question. Well done, Matt.
And she was like, no. She was kind of shy about it. She was like, no, I can't call myself an underdog.
I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me too.
good.
Yeah.
Great, good for
Already
her.
world number 1.
Exactly.
Yeah. David, you went to see Ons Jabeur in room 2.
Yeah, talking about trauma.
Oh, no.
No, honestly, it wasn't traumatic.
Okay.
It was lovely. I'm just sort of relating back to to trauma of 12 months ago. I mean, she's something else, Ons Jabeur. You know, room 2 is a small room. It's maybe 15, 16 seats, and right next to the top table where she's sitting. So it's very intimate. And the first thing she did was walk in and remark upon that. Oh, this is a small room. I like it. And then she started to answer the questions and also said, I've been practicing on court 1, and I like that. I like that more than centre court. And she sort of joked about it, but she said, if only my 2 finals had been on there. And she was in good spirits, and she wasn't backing down from any questions. She was talking about how much introspection she's had to have with her therapist, with her psychologist, and in order to try to unravel what happened last year and piece it back together and be able to move forwards. And I mean, what struck me is that she wasn't shying away from still being ambitious this time. You know, I did sort of wonder whether maybe she's going to go the whole compartmentalization of one match at a time, which she did say that, but she wasn't about to say that I'm not aiming for the title, because she said, I still have my dreams, and I still want to lift this beautiful trophy. You know, there was no backing away from that.
And it's quite interesting with Jabeur, isn't it? Because it would be, I think, wrong to say that her approach to Wimbledon and, you know, laying that goal out there hasn't worked. In that, you know, she has reached back-to-back finals. Like the players she beat last year, you know, I think she beat Raducanu and Sabalenka along the way to the final. Like
the revenge tour.
Exactly. Kvitova, I think, maybe as well on there.
It's an extraordinary run, really.
It was. It feels to me like she's not got a Wimbledon problem. It's a Wimbledon final problem. It's like if she gets there again, it's almost like she needs to approach that day differently. And, you know, otherwise keep doing what you've been doing. Like, it has been working here. She's won, you know, more matches at this tournament in the last couple of years than anyone. She just hasn't left with the trophy. But I just don't know whether you can really plan for that until you're there again. And there's no way it's going to be on court 1. So, like, she's going to have to face those kind of demons from last year, I suppose. And I just don't think she'll know how she'll handle that until she's there again.
I've just realised I didn't talk about her in our draw show yesterday.
Yeah.
She starts against Uchiyama, second round against Robin Montgomery or Olivia Gadecki. She's in Swiatek Raducanu's half. There's a Yulia Niemeyer lurking. Shout out to Hannah that thinks Yulia Niemeyer is one day going to be a Wimbledon champion. Doesn't look on the cards right now, but it was a long range bet from Hannah, so that's valid for the remainder of Yulia Niemeyer's career, however long it may last. Svitolina is in that section of the draw as well. It would be a quarterfinal, I think, with Iga Swiatek for Ons Jabeur.
Yeah, and I think it is just as likely almost that she might lose early and it be a shock as her actually going all the way again. I think I wouldn't be particularly surprised about either of those things happening. But it was interesting when she talked about her decision not to play the Olympics. She referenced back to the knee injury that she had earlier on in this year, that she said she kept trying to play through it, push through it, and and that really knocked her confidence. The fact that she was playing injured. I remember her being upset quite a lot on court when she had that knee injury. She just said it really knocked her confidence in her ability to do the things she wanted to do, because her legs just were not stable underneath her. And one of the reasons she's pulled out of the Olympics really is to just accept that she can't play all these. Something's got to go, and she's decided that this is the one, and then she'll need a break.
I wonder how she'd feel about having pulled out of the Olympics. Let's say she loses first round here. She can't go back on having pulled out of the Olympics.
No, I mean, she made a big point about how, for her, representing her country is a full-time commitment, not just about doing it at the Olympics. And that
is true. She does embody that, but I am sad.
Yeah,
she's not going to be playing the Olympics.
I understand that, but I also think that given what she's had the last couple of years, I really get that she wants to go for it at this event, and that change in surfaces for the players that, I mean, Alcaraz talked about it. He's 21 and he looks like he could play on any surface any week and be okay with it, and I think she just doesn't have that confidence that she could keep going back and forth.
Speaking of confidence in the body, Emma Raducanu today, that was mostly what she talked about, wasn't it? That was the headline. I feel very confident in my body, she said. I'm in a really good place physically. She said she feels like she's got exactly the right balance between matches and freshness. But then she also said, if I get through my first round, I'll be over the moon, because she's got Ekaterina Alexandrova in the first round. And that's just the fact of being ranked where she is, isn't it? You can be in the shape of your life, but you're going to likely play a seeded player early, and you're going to be the underdog in that. And I don't know that she's maybe sending a message about, like, don't judge me on losing first round. That doesn't mean I'm not playing well, or I'm not in good shape, or I'm not sort of ready to have a full tilt at this. But she definitely, I felt like she wanted the takeaway for us all from that press conference to be, all is well with Emma Raducanu. She's in a good place mentally and physically. That's what I felt like she was going to efforts to seem sort of happy and upbeat, you know?
Oh, I like to hear that. I wasn't in that press conference, but that's kind of what I was hoping you would say, because I definitely feel like in a year's time, at the end of next year, is when I feel like I would properly judge where she is in her career, because she'll have had a proper chance to be fit, hopefully, and she's made some pretty sizable decisions, hasn't she, about what she's not going to play, both of them at Roland Garros, and I know that's not to everybody's liking, but I think by the end of next year we might all be looking back and thinking, well, fair enough, look what you've gone and done.
She was asked quite a pointed question, wasn't she, about...
Very.
Yeah.
I think we're thinking of the same one.
Yeah, the Tim Henman question. Yeah. Will you tell us about it?
Well, she was asked to comment on the fact that Tim Henman had apparently predicted, I think some weeks ago, that... was it both Bolter and Raducanu would reach the second week, but Bolter would go further?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Okay.
She dealt with it really well, I thought.
Yes, and I can't exactly remember what she said.
She was like, oh, that seems fair, like said some really nice things about Katie Bolter. And that was when she gave the line about, I'll be over the moon if I win my first round.
Right,
like, I'm playing a seed in the first round.
Yeah, it was a bit of a sort of hospital pass of a question, wasn't it? I don't know. I do find it interesting how, we spoke to Bianca Andreescu a few weeks ago, who, there's definitely it's been different, but there's definitely a similarity there between Andreescu and Raducanu, quite a big one. And Andreescu doesn't talk like Raducanu did today. Like, I don't think Andreescu would ever really say, be big if I just win my first. She's always got in the back of her mind, I'm a Grand Slam champion. And she's always thinking, I can bring that level. I find it just interesting, the different ways that, like, Raducanu really sort of almost took the pressure off completely, or tried to. And I don't know, I just find it interesting that she didn't put out a comment at all. Like sort of, but I know what I'm capable of. Do you know what I mean? I think maybe it's a Wimbledon thing.
Do you think that's a presentation thing, though, rather than how they... I think that's presentation.
Yes, I think so.
Bianca Andreescu just there's no filter on how she's feeling at all.
And I think it's a comment on... I think that would be particularly the case here at Wimbledon. I don't think Raducanu would maybe be quite so trying to calm things down elsewhere. But she's sensibly, she knows that it can kind of get out of control. I think it's the right approach.
I agree.
Especially for her at this tournament. But it's just interesting how... Just struck me as a real sort of difference.
And I reckon she thinks she can beat anybody here on a day.
I think so too.
Back of her mind. She's not going to say that, and she's wise not to. But I reckon that's what she thinks.
Okay, so Carlos Alcaraz today not wearing the bucket hat.
Yeah.
But still carrying the spirit of the bucket hat, David.
But with extra maturity. He just doesn't look like that kid anymore. He doesn't look like a boy playing men's sport anymore. A sort of prodigious athletic boy. He now looks like a man to me. He now looks like somebody who is to be reckoned with in a press conference room, not just on the court. He really handles himself well now.
There was a great line that he gave, a question from Giri Nathan about how last year he'd said he was watching videos of Federer and Murray moving on the grass so that he could, sort of learn how they did it. And Giri asked him whether that's something that he's doing again this year. And he just said in a way that if it had come out of someone else's mouth, you might have thought, oh, you arrogant so-and-so. But because he said it was like, oh, that was great. And he said, no, he's been watching videos of himself at Wimbledon last year and reminding himself of what he's capable of and what he did. And that's been getting him in the mood for Wimbledon. And I was thinking, I've been watching videos of Alcaraz as well. Like, sounds like a great thing.
To get us in the mood for
I can
Wimbledon.
confirm. Like, it really works.
There's some people that can just get away with stuff.
Oh, and he can.
Cameraman Matthew is one of those people.
Yes.
Some of the things that he says...
Outrageous.
Absolutely outrageous.
We let them all go.
He gets away with it. It's charm, isn't it?
It is.
Anything else from Carlos Alcaraz today? You made a comment when I was asking you about this press conference earlier, David, where there was a sort of... He knows he's got that charm. He knows he's got a room full of people in the palm of his hands in a way that he didn't a couple of years ago.
Yes, he would sometimes say a funny line that everybody would laugh at a couple of years ago, and he clearly didn't know why they were laughing or what he'd said.
It's a bit Nadal-like.
Yes, maybe, and his answers were always way too long, and they would go around the houses. I mean, he was meaning well, but he didn't really have the command of the language, and he also didn't really understand, I think, what we needed and why we were asking what we were, but he was just trying to be nice in his answers. These days he gets it, and this is all the maturity coming through, and I think that the same thing is happening on the court. More and more, he's not having to be told as much by Juan Carlos Ferrero why things are happening. I think he's starting to feel them. He's starting to understand them on his own merits, and he's just going to get better as a result.
Did you see what the guy he's playing in the first round put on his Instagram?
No.
I didn't. I don't think I follow the guy he's playing in his first round on Instagram, Matt.
No.
I mean, it's very clear none of us can remember his name, so I definitely don't think we follow him on Instagram.
Mark Lyall, I believe.
I'll take your word for it.
That's the one.
From Estonia. And so...
Qualifier, right?
Yeah. So someone had made a graphic of Alcaraz's route to the final. And Lyall took exception with this graphic, and he reposted it on his story and said, route to the final, and then put something like, first round, bye-bye.
Oh, I like it.
I knew you would.
I like it a lot.
He's coming to play.
Is this my guy?
He might be.
What's his first name?
I think Mark Lyall. Mark doesn't sound like.
It sounds like the Tamara Corpatch of the ATP Tour.
I would say that the Wimbledon Draw website, it offers, if you hover over a player in the draw, you can create a route to the final. You can click route to the final for anyone. So we could right now, wouldn't be great radio or TV, but we could create a Mark Lyall route to the final graphic.
Yeah, well, easy to do. Just take Alcaraz's and.
We're doing that after the show.
Okay, so Mark has come to play on
Yep.
Monday. He's got 3 matches, 3 wins under his belt.
Yep.
We'll see.
It's
A rusty
exciting.
Alcaraz. You have got me a little bit pumped for that match now.
Yeah, he ain't that rusty.
He'll of course play opening match on centre court on Monday. Carlos Alcaraz is the defending men's champion. Jannik Sinner is playing on court 1 on Monday. I think he's third on, isn't he? We'll go through the full order of play tomorrow in our preview show, 7:30 as well tomorrow. Slightly dependent on the football, but scheduled for 7:30. Jannik Sinner also has a real air of success about him these days, doesn't he? Like, I mean, of course, he's the world number 1. He's top seeded a Grand Slam for the first time, but he owns it all in a way that's quite new, I think. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I love the way he intently listens to questions as they're coming through, and then there's sometimes a bit he doesn't quite hear correctly or understand, and he just repeats it back to the person in this kind of what?
Yeah.
Sort of, I don't really understand what you mean kind of tone. But yeah, again, another one who's not panicked in there. He's comfortable in his own skin, and quiet confidence about him. Made it very clear he's no longer in the fitness issues, health issues that he was having ahead of the French Open are not a factor anymore. So he's right where he needs to be.
You know he's a top player now because he was very late for his press conference. 15 minutes. I'm telling you, he wouldn't have done that 2 years ago.
I went to a full Ons Jabeur press conference in the time that it took for him to come in. And they were supposed to be at the same time.
Yeah, I don't hold it against him because they all do it, the top players. But yeah, it is a mark of swagger, I think. Speaking of which, Novak Djokovic. I loved how this press conference started because it was so straight to the point. The moderator was straight to the point. She said, "Let's cut straight to it and ask the question that everybody's here for." And Novak Djokovic was like, "Yep, shall I talk about the knee for a bit?" And he did. He gave us chapter and verse on how his knee is doing. Chapter and verse that included Taylor Fritz, Stan Wawrinka, and Lindsey Vonn all in the same sentence. They said they were 3 people that gave him reasons for optimism after his knee surgery. He said when he had it 3-ish weeks ago, he was very much in doubt for Wimbledon. That was how he put it. But it now sounds pretty much certain that he's going to play. He said he's been testing the knee almost to the maximum over the course of this week, and it's responded well so far. He said, "I'm confident about the health of my knee and my general physical state is really good." He as a mark of how confident he is, incredibly, he didn't talk about, going round by round. I'll play my first match and hope for the best. He said, "I'll use my first match as feedback for the rest of the tournament." And I was like, okay, that's where we are with Novak Djokovic, is it? We're back.
Yeah, I mean, he looked as good and as healthy and as confident as he ever has, really. Yes, he knows he's had this knee procedure, but he is not worried about it one iota at the moment. Now, things can change between now and when he has his first round match, but he's made it very clear that he expects to be contending for this title based on the state of his knee right now and the form he's in and the player he is, the record he's got. I was just so impressed with him. We talk about Alcaraz and Sinner seeming accomplished in the interview room now. I mean, I don't think anybody's sort of become more accomplished over the years in the interview room at just being comfortable in who he is. than Novak Djokovic. That's a real change in the last few years, and I loved the way he described. And he said it's not FOMO that I was feeling when I decided I'd wanted to play Wimbledon.
And then he described FOMO.
He described FOMO to a T.
Yeah.
I.e., yes, there is an argument that I should just not play here, and because the Olympics is the big gap in my record, and I could go and prioritise that. But actually, I want to play this. This is Wimbledon, and I want to play Wimbledon, and I can't imagine it going on and me not being involved. And I loved it, really, because that shows the reverence for the place that he has, the love for it, how he realises his time is numbered now. You know, I don't care how fit you are, he's not going to be around that much longer. So he doesn't want to miss one.
Honestly, Taylor Fritz has been like assisting Novak Djokovic to win Grand Slam titles by losing to him in the quarterfinals for years, and he has possibly done his biggest assist yet.
Why didn't he say, "Don't do it, Novak"? Don't do it.
Like the number of times Djokovic is referencing the call he had with Taylor Fritz and seeing Taylor Fritz as this guiding light in terms of how to get back. It's crazy. It's interesting what you said there, David, about like the form he's in, and what I find interesting about that is kind of we're really only going off practice, really, because what I think the knee injury has done has slightly taken away all the discussion that we were having pre-French Open, which was, well, actually Novak Djokovic isn't in great form. And kind of the question I wanted to ask him in the press conference I didn't get called on was, did he get enough out of those 4 matches at Roland Garros at a slam to feel confident again that his form is back? Because there was that was certainly kind of the impression I got at times against Cerundolo and Mazzetti. Even though he was being pushed to 5 sets, I felt like he was playing better. The hunger was back, the drive, the intensity was back that had been missing all year. But I think we're all just kind of assuming that the form is back and it's Novak Djokovic and it's Wimbledon, so it's all just going to click. But I do still have a tiny question mark in the back of my mind. Like, we haven't seen him play well at the latter stage of a big tournament now for a little while, kind of the longest time since that sort of 2016-17 period, start of 2018. Like, other than that, he'd been routinely reaching the latter stages of every tournament and playing big players regularly. He just hasn't been playing those matches, and that's just there in the back of my mind, but it's obviously outweighed by everything that he's done in his career. But I do think it's an interesting point that everyone's just talking now about the injury.
Yeah, I mean, he is still 37. He hasn't had that surgically removed.
Right.
He hasn't had 10 years surgically taken off his age.
Yeah.
If you like. If that's, yeah. Just one final line also from that answer he gave to Matt Futterman's question about, like, why the rush? Why take this risk? And, you know, he said, as you said, David, because it's Wimbledon. And then he also, towards the end of the answer, he basically said it was also like a fun new challenge. He said, I wanted to see how fast can I recover from this. It was like he saw surgery and a major injury as like a fun new challenge that he hasn't faced yet in his career. And I thought that is an insight into this man's personality and
there's
greatness.
Great curiosity to him. He is interested in so much about what goes on in life, and even a medical procedure like that and what it might do to him and what he might be able to do to it is what came out.
So that's Novak Djokovic, Jannik Sinner, Carlos Alcaraz. You spoke to or were in the press conference of 4th seed Alexander Zverev, David.
Yeah, who there were a couple of bits of insight from him that really struck me, because he's seeded to be meeting Jack Draper in the 3rd round. So I suppose there's added interest from a British perspective there, and we went into Draper's as well, which we'll come on to. But I was curious, because Zverev has never really done that well here, does he feel different this time? And that's what I asked him. And he said, really, yes. He said, I was only speaking to my brother earlier today about how, for the first time, I actually am coming here thinking I'm a contender for this title. I think I can win it. And it seems it's not only his own form. I mean, I don't think he's magically become a grass court specialist or totally comfortable on the surface. And he does say that it poses challenges to him that the other surfaces don't. I think he backs the form he's been in that has got him to the French Open final and fourth seed, etc. But he actually said the biggest thing is the competition's not what it was, i.e. Roger Federer isn't dominating the place. Novak Djokovic is not dominating the way that he was, and he kind of, I suppose he was kind of saying that he's not the maybe the biggest threat that he used to be. Maybe he doesn't know how well Novak Djokovic is feeling. I mean, his press conference was before Djokovic's was, and I didn't hear about those two practicing together, but he just seemed to really rate his chances, and I thought maybe you need to do that, but I'm not convinced by them.
Zverev rating himself highly shocked.
Yeah, no massive surprise.
Like, I think that argument would stand up if he'd been losing to those guys at Wimbledon before, but he's not. He's his last few losses at Wimbledon have been Berrettini, Auger-Aliassime, Jiri Vesely, Ernest Gulbis. Wasn't expecting to see his name there. Milos Raonic.
I really back myself as Ernest Gulbis is out of the way now.
Right.
Yeah, he's finally retired. My time has come.
He was saying how open he felt it was, and that he's right there in the mix as one of the contenders. I mean, but that is very him, isn't it? He does do that. The other thing he got asked about was the single-handed backhand and whether he feels it is going to die out because of its lack of effectiveness versus a two-hander. I mean, he is a player with just about the perfect two-handed backhand, I would say. So I think probably the best one in the game, really. And he said it's a really tough ask. What?
Matt's
do you not
got
agree?
something to say.
Well,
there.
Amanda Nissimova
in the
says
men's
hi.
game.
All right, in the men's game. But I mean, he said the thing is the single-hander, when you've got these guys like Alcaraz and Sinner hitting the ball as hard at your backhand as they are, you just need that second hand on the racket. He said it's really hard to return that thing single-handed. I mean, I don't know how much experience he's got of that personally, but certainly I mean it does seem they're few and far between these days, aren't they?
Yeah, and I do think it is on the return that the double-hander makes all the difference. Like, I think, just like you were saying the other day, like, okay, Tommy Paul, we don't think of as a massive server, but he's still getting it up in the mid to high 120s regularly. And that would be probably what, 20 or 30 years ago, what Sampras would be serving. And he was standing out as a big server. And now, like, kind of they don't all serve as well as Sampras, but they can all get the speed, and you do need most people need the two hands, and it's just become the dominant type of backhand for sure.
The other problem for Draper that's not Djokovic or Ernest Gulbis is Jack Draper potentially in the third round. He came through the main press conference room today. David, how did you find him?
Really impressive, confident, strident, detailed again.
Gave a great answer to your question.
Well, I asked him about the things he's hearing from Wayne Ferreira that he wouldn't have been hearing before Wayne Ferreira arrived, and he just said he was so blunt with how I'd got to play that I think it probably took him aback. And I interviewed Wayne Ferreira for our podcast the other week, and he's a lovely guy, but there's no wasted words with him. He tells you what he thinks, and he's not afraid if you don't like it, and he doesn't need it. I mean, he wanted to coach Jack Draper, but I think if Jack Draper had been unreceptive to his guidance, I don't think he'd be hanging around. So, and he doesn't need to. He's got a very successful playing career behind him. He's been a successful coach, and he told him, "You've got to be aggressive. You've got to just take it to these guys, no matter what." And I think it's just made Draper bullish. I think he just feels so clear in his mind as to how he needs to go about things. And I mean, he said really the crossroads was a year ago when he was on the sofa, unable to play Wimbledon. And he said, I watched Alcaraz in that final, and he obviously loved the match, and he's obviously a huge tennis fan, but it got to him that this guy is actually younger than he is, and look what he's doing. And I think he was jealous of him, and I think he was like, right, I've got to get to work.
And it was really interesting, I thought, in his answer to you, David, how he said that Wayne Ferreira had been, as you said, so blunt at the beginning of their partnership, but he said that actually in the last few weeks Ferreira has kind of stepped back in terms of the advice that he's giving, and that made me think of some of the conversations that we've been kind of fortunate enough to have with Pam Shriver, who is coaching. And so often the point that Pam, I think, tries to get across is it's not always necessarily about what you say, it's about how you say it and when you say it. I think that's a big art of coaching. Like, you've got to pick your moments to get your message across. And it sounds like now that Draper's kind of in this swing of playing tournaments and competing and trying to win them, Ferreira is not badgering him with advice. It was a very simple message at the beginning, and now it's like, go out and execute it. And it's all about not trying to overcomplicate it. And I think, Jack Draper should have a very simple, straightforward game, especially on this surface, and that's what's really come across to me with how Ferreira has kind of communicated that to him, I think.
He's a good lad, isn't he, Jack Draper?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we like him. Fascinating. Okay, well, while you were with Jack Draper, I was over at Arangi watching Andy Murray practice there. David, you saw a little bit of this as well. Simon Briggs was there. Pam Shriver was there. It was Matt had FOMO about it.
I actually did. I saw a photo on our Instagram and I was like, oh.
I left quite quickly, Matt. You wouldn't have wanted to be there.
Yeah, okay, so it was actually his second practice session of the day. Apparently he'd practiced off-site at Rains Park somewhere not too far away earlier on this morning. Behind closed doors, nobody saw that, and then practiced this afternoon at the practice courts here, not open to the public, but open to certain members of the media. It was a light practice, but he was doing singles drills. It was clearly a practice to test where he is with a view to playing singles potentially on Tuesday. Excuse me, live telly, folks. And those singles drills included some pretty brutal stuff. He asked his hitting partners to drop shot him.
Oh, that's just mean.
Yeah.
Gosh.
And it was not a pretty sight watching him try to chase down drop shots. He did a sprint test against Johnny O'Mara, and he got beaten by Johnny O'Mara.
You see, Matthew can get away with that laugh.
Yeah, there's no non-blunt way to tell you that Andy Murray lost a sprint test today to Johnny O'Mara,
who's a retired doubles player.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm sure a very fit one.
Look, in terms of positives, he was serving okay. I expected the serve to be a big problem, given it was a back injury. It is a back injury. He was serving okay. I'm sure there was another positive, but I have forgotten it. There might not have been another one. It was a really, really tough watch. The other positive was that he looked quite happy. He looked quite happy and relaxed, and I do think there was possibly a slightly performative element of that. He knew there were journalists there. He knew there were people watching. There were photographers on the court. I've seen some of the photos that are out there, and he is laughing and joking. He did a little game on the court, sort of mocking up a little game of pétanque with tennis balls. He was very visibly sort of happy when he wasn't bent double, using his racket as a walking stick.
Oh God.
Changes of direction looked very tough. This is a guy that Simon Briggs reminded me of this today. This is a guy whose former fitness trainer, Jez Green, and they actually crossed paths on the practice court today because Sebastian Korda, who Seb Green's now working with, was next on. But when Jez Green was working with Andy Murray, he once told Simon Briggs that he was faster over the first 3 meters than Usain Bolt, Andy Murray. I can't verify that, but that is what Jez Green used to say. You know,
he was a slow starter, though.
he was a
Bolt.
famously slow starter, Usain Bolt. But yeah, in terms of, you know, explosivity and quickness out of the blocks, that, you know, we've seen footage of him doing those sprint tests, and I'm sorry to say this again, but he lost one to Johnny O'Mara. And look, we often joke about how people like us, and indeed us, sometimes go and watch practice and say, oh, they're hitting the ball so sweetly. And he was hitting the ball really sweetly when the ball was right in his hitting zone. He will be able to do that when he's 100. All of these guys will. They will be on their deathbeds, and if a tennis ball lands there and they've got a racket in their hand, they'll be able to hit it sweetly. It's all about whether they can get themselves in position to get the ball in the hitting zone, and he couldn't do that today. But the majority of people watching him seem to think he was going to play singles on Tuesday, probably not because it seems like a good idea, but because it's Andy Murray. I have my doubts.
Just the 3 days to hold our breaths, then.
3 days to hold our breaths, yeah. And look, I support whatever he decides. It is his decision. I will find it a tough watch if he plays singles, because of what he's told us about the risk of injuring himself for the long term. I just so don't want that for him, but respect whatever decision he makes, but am anxious about it.
Are we going to be in a situation where Thomas Mahak is being booed on centre court for drop-shotting Andy Murray?
By us. No.
It looked like a good tactic today,
Right.
put it that way.
I don't think he's got a very good drop shot.
Mahak?
Yeah.
I think he does, doesn't he?
He does.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. He's
Great.
He's got great touch and hands, but I mean, the one match I saw him play on grass, he was a disaster.
Oh.
And he had his own neck problem in that match against Fils. He was getting it stretched out all the time. Like,
So
what I'm saying is,
It's on.
no, I'm not.
what you're saying is it might not be the best spectacle if on either side of the net if it happens. Oof.
Gosh, I mean, it's like, you know, really not that long ago that Murray said he wishes he hadn't gone on court at Queen's, and now he's kind of faced with that decision again, and it seems like he's going to, well, it sounds like he might take the same decision.
I mean, look, that wasn't my impression from watching him today.
Right.
I was watching him going, well, obviously he's not going to play singles, but other people there, other more learned people than me, thought the fact that he was doing those singles drills meant that he was still planning on playing singles right now.
I suppose he might be doing them to rule it out. Doing what he has to do to give the final check, and then might just think, okay, well, clearly I can't do it.
That's not how Andy Murray's mind works, though, is it? I don't know. We'll see. Watch this space.
Way too many years trying to predict what he's going to do and getting it wrong.
Yeah. I really do think he's going to leave it to the very last moment, though. I think this could be a Tuesday morning job. He's giving us something to talk about, isn't he? A few other results from today. Alejandro Tabilo is the champion in Mallorca. He beat Sebastian Offner to win the title there. Taylor Fritz, the champion in Eastbourne. He beat Max Purcell in straight sets. Kasatkina, the women's champion in Eastbourne. Big news for her as Sabalenka doesn't play.
Yeah, and this was big in itself for Kasatkina. She'd lost her last 5 finals. You know, it become a real kind of issue. I think it was kind of 2 years ago that she won her last title, but had got to the finals of a lot of tournaments and not been able to close them. So, you know, even though it's, you know, the week leading up to a slam is kind of, you know, that they're not always the strongest fields. They sort of get a bit lost in the build up to the slam, obviously. But I think for Kasatkina, that will be a big weight lifted off her shoulders. That will be big for her. She will be absolutely buzzing, the fact that she's finally got another title, having come so close to so many. And yeah, if she can take some of that form, and if Sabalenka isn't right, then, as you say, suddenly her her Wimbledon prospects look up. And we were talking the other day, and David was reminding us that Kasatkina kind of took Ash Barty apart here at Wimbledon a few years ago. I don't think of Kasatkina as necessarily having a game that immediately translates to grass that well with that loopy forehand that she has, but the touch that she's got, her slice, her just general court sense, I think probably does lend itself to grass. And yeah, very interesting to watch her at Wimbledon off the back of this sort of confidence boost for her.
I'm pleased for her. Beat Leylah Fernandez 3-4 today in the final, and Diana Schneider, the champion in Bad Homburg, she beat Donna Vekic 6-3, 2-6, 6-3. David tuned in at 3-3 in the third set to watch this. I mean, I have a soft spot for Diana Schneider. I'm a big fan of hers, but our Pam connection, we all have a soft spot for Donna. David tuned in 3-3 in the third, and she didn't win another game. So
don't think Pam's talking to me anymore.
She didn't reply, did
she? Sorry, Pam.
There's still a great week for them both, and these are 500 events for the women. These are not just Wimbledon warm-up events. These are big deals in themselves. That just reaching the final, that'll have a big impact on Donna Vekic's ranking, and even bigger impact on Schneider's. These are big deal events in themselves for these players, and of course will be interesting to see what they can do at Wimbledon. It's that balance for players that play this week between the matches and the confidence and the form and the fatigue.
And Vekic, of course, the second round opponent potentially Sabalenka with her trials and tribulations.
Indeed, lots of watching this space, folks. Good job. We've got nightly podcasts for you throughout the tournament. We have another one coming up tomorrow, 7:30, and then of course we are daily, nightly, shortly after the close of play on the show court every single day. With us for all of it will be Maverick, our mascot. Hello Maverick, German short-haired pointer living in Georgia. Apparently I did very well with the pronunciation of Maverick's hometown, which I don't have written in front of me, and I'm not going to try to freestyle, but apparently I did very well. Chatter something. Hello Maverick. We have our mascots. I have the dearly departed Darwin. David has Francis, and Matt has Haida and Soma. Hello to you all. Billie Jean is sponsored by Billie Jean King and Alana Kloss, who are in town and have been hitting tennis balls. Seeing Billie Jean King hit tennis balls on Instagram is food for the soul, isn't it?
Oh, I started my day by opening that Instagram story, and honestly, people always say that Federer used to watch the ball really well, and he did, but no one's watched the ball like Billie Jean King. That her head is still looking at the ball, or the racket face long after the ball's gone. Oh, I could watch it all day.
Chattahoochee, by the way, just been reminded in the chat. Thank you for that, Cheryl. So hello to both Billie Jeans, King and K9. We have our top folks and executive producers, Jamie, Jeff, Chris and Greg, and it's over to Matt for shout-outs.
We start with Claire Richards in York.
Hi Claire.
Hello Claire. Like Claire Liu.
Like Renee Richards.
Very good. Very good. In York, UK.
Yes.
They filmed some of the Harry Potter films at York Cathedral, I believe.
Could be. Never seen them.
You've got kids, David.
I know. I leave the room when it's on.
So they're into it, but you've never accompanied them.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
I use that as an opportunity to watch something I like in another room.
Hello, Claire, and thank you.
We've also got Kate Darling in Oregon.
Hi, Kate.
Hello, Kate. Like Alistair Darling, the former Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Where's the tennis link there?
It's election week.
Okay. During Wimbledon.
Right.
Obvious tennis link.
And we know Kate because Kate's dog Quincy was a mascot last year for us.
And Quincy is a delight.
Yeah.
I say that about all the mascots, but yeah. Quincy is a delight.
Still looking forward to the one you don't like.
I do like it. We'll find one eventually. Hello, lovely Quincy, and hello, Kate.
And finally, we have Debbie Thorpe who is Yorkshire born but recently moved to Edinburgh and loves it.
Oh.
And Debbie's given me a slight telling off in the shout-outs.
Excellent.
Because, she says, this is the third time I've filled in the form and my info hasn't been used apart from my name. So here I go again. So I'm about to give you that info. And, Debbie first watched tennis in 1969. And she used to join the boarders at her school after exams. And she said it was a special privilege to watch Wimbledon on black and white TV. And her heroes were John Newcombe and Tom Ocker.
Oh, excellent.
I love that, and I'm sorry, Debbie, that's the first.
That's
airing
really
of
great
that.
info.
Yeah.
I wonder what
I've let
rabbit
you
hole we
down.
went down in with.
Probably Debbie Jevons, I was thinking.
And then we probably, who is the chairman of the
Chair of the All England Club.
All England Club. Somebody who used to work for BBC Radio 5 Live, for whom I work also. And yes, we probably ended up down that rabbit hole, and therefore, Debbie, your information was not used. Sorry. No, it has
I
been.
feel really scolded by Debbie.
Me too.
I'm very
Sorry,
ashamed.
Debbie.
Sorry, Debbie, and hope I've made up for it. Any tennis Debbies other than Jevons? No. Should have left it there. Thanks ever so much, Debbie. Do hit that like and subscribe button, please, folks. Maybe not Debbie. She might not be. Might be
No,
too
Debbie
happy
as well.
with us.
Debbie as well.
But
Like, subscribe.
everyone other than Debbie, do please like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot. You know, algorithms, that kind of thing. We're YouTubers now, folks.
Yeah.
YouTubers, models, the lot. We're still podcasters, folks, and we will be back tomorrow with our live preview show, 7:30 p.m. UK time, looking ahead to the first day's play. The order of play is out. We'll be talking about it. We've also got that Andy Murray press conference coming up, Marketa Vondrousova as well. And I'm sure David will do some loitering and gather some tidbits for you. So please do join us tomorrow, 7:30 UK time. We cannot wait to see you and speak to you then.